You must not tell a soul! We have a deal.
Imagine stepping into a great hall, glowing with torchlight, banners rippling, and tables groaning under the weight of roasted meats. But this isn't a fairy tale feast. It's politics, with a side of spilled wine. Medieval upper-class parties were less storybook magic and more Game of Thrones. Behind the laughter and music, there were drunken brawls, whispered betrayals, and alliances sealed over meat pies. Tonight, we're lifting the curtain on what these gatherings were really like. Getting invited wasn't casual. No, hey, come over tonight. Invitations were handwritten on expensive parchment, sealed in wax with the host's family crest. Messengers rode for days to deliver them. Receiving one was like holding a golden ticket. It meant you mattered. The guest list was ruthless. Nobles invited allies, rivals they needed to monitor, and wealthy merchants who had proven useful. Friendship rarely mattered. Politics did. Getting excluded was social death. Imagine living in a time where missing a dinner meant your career, marriage prospects, and political future were finished. That was the brutal reality. Arriving at a castle party was overwhelming. Great halls stretched longer than a football field, with ceilings soaring high and beams carved from ancient oaks. Tapestries displayed family victories and alliances. These decorations weren't just pretty. They were propaganda stitched in thread. The most important message, though, came from where you sat. The Lord and his key allies sat at the high table, visible to all. Everyone else was arranged by rank, wealth, and usefulness. Sitting closer meant influence. Sitting further away meant you were being sidelined. In a way, the seating chart was the evening's real scoreboard. Forget 3 meals a day. Banquets had up to 50 courses, running from afternoon into early morning. Guests endured roasted venison, whole swans, and pies so large they could hide live birds inside, released for dramatic effect when the pie was cut. Dinner wasn't just food. It was theater. Spices were the ultimate flex. Cinnamon, saffron, pepper, imported at huge risk, were so valuable they cost more than gold by weight. A single spiced sauce could bankrupt a farmer. Serving it wasn't just about taste, but about showing off global trade connections. Every bite whispered, "I have wealth. I have reach. I have power." If you thought the food was excessive, the drinks made it worse. Ale and mead flowed endlessly. Spiced wines warmed guests through cold winters, and since water was often unsafe, alcohol was the safest thing to drink. The result? By nightfall, many nobles were stumbling across stone floors, slurring speeches, or collapsing into tapestries. It wasn't just embarrassing. Drunkenness could be dangerous. A careless slip of the tongue could destroy an alliance. A drunken insult could spark a feud lasting generations. Wine wasn't just fueling laughter, it was fueling medieval drama. No medieval party was complete without entertainment. Minstrels played flutes, lutes, and hurdy-gurdies, filling the air with strange, enchanting music. Jesters juggled, cracked jokes, and even dared to mock nobles, using humor as a shield against execution. Sometimes, parties even featured animal acts, trained monkeys, performing bears, or falcons swooping overhead. And when that wasn't enough, staged fights broke out. Imagine dinner theater where armored knights clashed swords for the crowd's amusement. Parties were chaotic carnivals of music, danger, and laughter. When formal entertainment ended, guests entertained themselves. Archery contests, dice games, and wrestling matches broke out in courtyards. But these weren't just for fun. They were subtle tests of skill and cunning. Dice games especially revealed social intelligence. Everyone knew dice were often loaded. Winning by cheating wasn't shameful. Getting caught was. It showed who was clever enough to manipulate chance, qualities nobles valued in war and politics. Even games were training grounds for the medieval survival of the fittest. Beneath the music and feasting, the real game was politics. Every conversation was loaded with meaning. A casual comment about the weather could actually signal military plans. A toast could imply loyalty or betrayal. These weren't just parties, they were political battlefields with wine cups instead of swords. Marriage alliances were often arranged in whispers between dances. Land disputes were settled over venison. Who you spoke to and how long was as carefully noted as any treaty. The banquets looked like fun, but they were war councils in disguise. But alcohol, rivalries, and long nights often led to disaster. Fights broke out over insults. Food was spilled down expensive velvet gowns. Sometimes pigs or goats wandered into the hall, raiding scraps and sending nobles scrambling. Drunken nobles occasionally stumbled into affairs or reckless words that destroyed reputations. One bad night could echo for years. Parties were as dangerous as they were glamorous. When dawn broke, the great hall looked like a battlefield. Bones, spilled wine, broken dishes. Dozens of servants worked through the day, scrubbing, resetting, and salvaging valuables. Leftover food was distributed to servants and the poor, partly out of generosity, partly as political theater. Fire safety was urgent, too. With hundreds of torches and candles, one forgotten flame could burn down a castle. Servants checked ashes, snuffed wicks, and made sure the night's chaos didn't turn into a fiery tragedy. The most important part of the party wasn't what happened that night. It was the stories told afterward. A well-executed feast elevated a lord's reputation across the kingdom. A disastrous one stained their legacy. Word traveled fast, and in a world without newspapers, gossip from banquets was how reputations lived or died. So, when you picture medieval upper-class parties, forget the polished fairy tales. These weren't harmless feasts with polite laughter. They were battlegrounds, dressed up in silk and candlelight. Every toast carried hidden meaning. Every game of dice could tilt a political alliance. And every spilled goblet of wine might spark a feud that echoed for generations. But here's the real twist. Under all the chaos, drunken knights, scheming nobles, and jesters poking fun at kings, these gatherings shaped the very politics of the Middle Ages. Behind the laughter was strategy. Behind the music was power. Now I want to hear from you. If you were suddenly transported back to a medieval banquet, what role do you think you'd play? Would you sit quietly and observe the scheming? Would you grab the dice and try your luck? Or would you be bold enough to raise a toast that could change history? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm excited to see which one of you would survive the night and which one would leave with their reputation in ruins. And hey, if this peek behind castle walls made you see medieval life in a whole new light, do me a favor, hit that like button, share this video with a fellow history buff, and subscribe so you don't miss the next wild story. Because, trust me, what's coming next will make this feast look tame. Until then, stay curious, stay daring, and remember, in the Middle Ages, the party never ended. It just changed the kingdom.